Yeah.
All right, so I can't, this isn't working for me. So here's our board. Test audio. Seems responsive. There you go.
This one's we're recording. Whenever you hit the button, or are we recording now?
We are live. Sorry, I should have given you a countdown.
All
You're
right.
live.
All right. We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. Do a roll call. Bear Griffin, myself, present. See, we have Emily Rupchak and Wendy Uhouse present as well, along with the township trustee. Move on to the approval of the agenda. Anybody have any changes? We are going to swap B and D under new business, but there's no additions, just changing the order. Outside of that, there are no changes to the agenda. If I could get.
I'll make a motion to approve it.
I'll second.
Okay. Got a motion to approve the agenda by Emily and a second by Wendy. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion passes. Approval of the minutes. We've all had the ability to review the minutes from the June 12th meeting. Anybody have any questions, comments, concerns, changes? I have nothing as well. I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve the June 12th minutes.
I'll second that.
And a second from Wendy. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, motion passes. At this point, we reserve a slot for public comment.
No.
All right. Something on the computer, so we'll slide on by. We've got our trustees report.
Mr. Chairman, the first up is the presentation of our 2026 budget by Mr. Daniel Dalton from Dalton and Senator Dalton.
I'll probably just step over here. Good evening, board, and thank you for letting me explain our 2026 budget proposal to you. This goes in hand with a public hearing, which we should also open up after a discussion on the budget itself. So you all have the budget packet in front of you, yes?
Yes.
All right. So that first page is that Form 3, which is the notice to taxpayers stating here are the dates of our public hearing and the date of the adoption. Here are our budget estimates. Here are our property tax levy estimates for 2026 calendar year. And so within that budget, the total adopted or the total advertised amount is $1,362,611. And between the major funds, the general fund has budgeted $230,000. The Township Assistance Fund has budgeted $10,000. We have two separate debt funds, the fire building debt, the fire equipment debt, and both of those are budgeted high enough so that we can pay off our debt annually. And so the total unit budget itself is $1.36 million. Now, we may discuss our property tax levies, which only impact our general fund, our Township Assistance Fund, and the two debt funds. That comes out to a total amount of $160,000, roughly. The big question of the evening may be, what do our circuit breakers look like moving into next year? And so after some conversation with the Department of Local Government and Finance and a clearer understanding of what Senate Enrolled Act 1 means to the township itself, we've determined that due to the establishment of the fire territory and certain homestead deductions for homestead credits applied against the net assessed value of the township, we will see net assessed values decrease, certain property tax owner or certain homeowners increasing into that property tax cap, and therefore our circuit breaker will be reduced like we have seen it in the last 6 months. So in 2026, we anticipate a total circuit breaker impact of $260,000, $259,580 to be exact. And those were numbers provided to us by the state. Now, I can get into a rigmarole of how does Senate Bill 1 actually impact these homestead deduction and the supplemental homestead deduction, but ultimately what really happens is homeowners get a credit, $300 credit. And so by doing so, the assessed value of those homes actually reduces, meaning our assessed value reduces and our levy request has to increase. And so our total amount that we will receive actually decreases because the circuit breaker is going to prop us up high. I know that's all maybe gibberish, or I would be happy to answer any questions about that. But the main fact of the budget public hearing is, here's our budget that we are requesting. If this board decides to approve this budget as is, then we will send it down to the state. They will send us back what's called a 1782 notice, and we have a 10-day period in maybe mid to late December where we can actually look at these figures and say, all right, sounds good, we approve.
Daniel, can you walk through, to back up a bit and remind us, and for me, it's new information, the circuit breaker in kind of a simplified form, like, because I know it's a formula that you're working with to
Yes.
project
Yes.
these numbers.
So that's a great question. Every property in Indiana is assessed at a certain amount, whether it be agricultural, residential, commercial, industrial. Certain classifications fall under certain, so at 1% tax cap, you have residential properties. At a 2% tax cap, you have rentals, condos, ag land, things like that. At 3%, you have commercial and industrial properties. Depending on the total unit tax rate, which is unit, I can't remember the name, but the total amount is about $2.5 per $100 of assessed value. And so because we're above $2, every parcel that is a 1% cap and every parcel that is a 2% cap receives a circuit breaker to get up to that $2.4 total tax rate.
Yeah.
So everything above that cap, above that minimum cap, gets impacted or gets sent back to the township with a circuit breaker impact. Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
Does that?
That helps, yeah.
Okay.
I probably need to do a deeper dive on that, but that helps.
Mm-hmm. And so we received guidance from the state that basically said, due to Senate Enrolled Act 1, the standard homestead deduction will decrease the assessed value of every residential property in the county, which means the assessed value of every residential property in the county goes down. And the homestead credit, which is $300 for every residential property, is applied to those residential units. So the homestead values in the county, those 1% caps, are increasing our circuit breaker substantially. And so that's kind of the big player here in the reason why the township has received a gigantic increase in our circuit breaker total.
Which affected our money in June and will affect it in December also.
Yes,
correct?
June, December, and then all of next year. Mm-hmm. And so when we try to budget out what our future revenues will be, it is tricky because there was a situation where the fire territory was formed, and we assumed the circuit breaker impact would fall proportionately between each of the units that were involved in the territory.
Portage and Warren.
Yes, and instead we as the township received a greater proportion of the circuit breaker impact than was originally anticipated. Mm-hmm. And that's the reason why in June of this year we received only a couple $1,000s worth of property tax levy. That's because most taxpayers in the township were at their tax cap, and we had a levy way beyond that just to afford operations. The good news is, I will say there's a silver lining here. We have cash reserves to support our budget for 2026.
Just real quickly, without diving too deeply into this, because I'm on the newer end of understanding this, but where does the circuit breaker, where do those resources go? So
It
what
is
happens
not,
to that?
it is not paid into the total tax system. So you, if I'm a homeowner in Porter County, I'm above the $1 tax rate for my residential unit. I pay my full taxes, right?
Mhm.
The amount above 1% doesn't go to the overlapping taxing units like the county, the city, the township, the library, the school. It is basically spread across each of the units.
It's not really visible,
Correct. But you as a homeowner
still feel it.
pay the full amount,
Right.
yes.
Right.
Mhm.
Okay. Super helpful. Thank you, Dana.
I guess the one of the final points I'll make on this budget for the public hearing purposes is that our debt service funds for the fire equipment and fire building make up 82% of the township's entire budget. And as we pay down those two debts, we'll see that proportion reduce substantially. I would have to pull the exact payoff dates for those two bonds, but the good news is over the next several years, we can reduce the amount of property tax levy that we have to ask for to pay down those two debt service funds.
All right.
So it'd be my recommendation that this board can consider this budget as it stands. And then here in a couple of weeks, we will come back for adoption.
That's October the 14th, I think.
Yes.
14.
All right. Anybody have any other questions for Daniel? All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dana.
Mr. Chairman, you want to open a public hearing for any public remonstrance or comment to be heard on the budget as has been presented. It'll then come before the board again on the 14th for either revision or adoption.
Is that what was D on in our new business?
No, that's a separate item.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, we can go ahead and open up for public hearing on the 2026 budget. Any public comments or questions or anything on that? All right. Like he said, we've got a adoption meeting on October 14th here at 5:30. So seeing no public comment, we can move on to the next point on the agenda. You had,
Which is update on the fire. Do they have to take a vote on moving that forward or no?
We don't, since we don't have the finalized language yet, eventually they will need to adopt it. But suffice to say, for the update aspect of it, the township, the trustees of Warren and Portage Township are discussing the terms that would apply to the use of the bays here by the fire territory. Since this building is effectively no longer in service and new station next door is, the interlocal agreement that created the fire territory allows the townships to designate in writing any other property that they wish to contribute for the territory's use. And so we're delineating some of that language now. I think you and I have worked on it a bit. I've just gotten some input from Jason Critchlow over at Portage Township. And so that should, I think the hope would be that it will be ready to execute shortly.
Going back, maybe you misunderstood me. I mean, does the board have to vote on moving the budget forward to the 14th or no?
No,
No?
because it will, all that's required here is that it's, that there's the notice of the hearing, that the budget be presented, and then it'll be up for adoption at the next hearing.
Okay.
Yes, yep, sorry.
But thank you for two, but to piggyback on what Alex just mentioned, we have been in discussion with Mr. Critchlow at Portage Township. They're the one that brought this to my attention, that they wanted to lease the 4 bays out there because they have use for them in regards to storage and whatever else in the wells out there. And we have been trying to, over the last couple months, 3 months, sit down with Mr. Critchlow and discuss the lease. And we've had people come in, people that do this for a living, commercial people come in and say, okay, if you was to lease this, what would that be? They came up with a figure. We have put that in the agreement to Mr. Critchlow. The fire territory, it's my understanding, is not going to lease the space. It's Portage Township that's going to lease the space under their agreement. So we're just waiting to hear back from them, but it's going on, in my opinion, too long, because the township itself is losing money by not getting this done. And it was their idea that brought this to me to do this. And now they're kind of dragging their feet. So we need to get this done ASAP, because as I mentioned at the fire territory meeting, if you recall, Wendy, a couple of months ago, I had other people that have asked me about leasing those spaces. And if the fire territory or Portage Township does not want to do that, I will probably come back to the board with an agreement with somebody to lease that, because it'll be income for the township, and we're going to need, as Mr. Daniel has said back there, money in the next few years is going to be tight for everyone.
Can I ask
So,
a question, Bobby? I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
no, go
Are you
ahead.
finished?
Go ahead.
Question is around, I wasn't clear that this would be a Portage lease, not a fire territory lease? Don't the vehicles?
And you can.
Yeah,
Good question, because I asked the same question.
That's interesting to me, 'cause the vehicles are assets of the territory, correct?
not really. So
Oh.
fire territories are
They're not
an
really.
interesting creature. Yeah, they exist by virtue of the interlocal agreement, which is
Right.
nothing more than a contract between two government entities.
So assets have to belong to an entity.
Correct.
such as the township. Okay,
So what's
that makes sense.
contemplated is each township has their toys, and they contribute their toys to the party. And so that would be the way I would describe it.
Because it
And,
would be Portage located stations, is that a way to look at it?
one way to do it. Yeah, I mean, it's
Because it could be ours.
correct. Yeah, Warren could have, because Warren's fire department existed prior to the territory.
Right.
And so what Warren did is contributed its stations, its trucks to the territory. Portage did the same.
Right.
So the territory itself doesn't have the capacity as an entity to hold real estate, really to hold title to things. It's nothing more than a committee that's created by agreement that has some tax levy authority. And so for this, I think the appropriate way that we've structured this agreement for the territory to use that space is through an agreement between the two participating units in the territory to authorize the use of that space for the territory, if that makes sense. It's kind of it's admittedly convoluted. And this is kind of one of the clunky aspects of territories that statute doesn't give us a lot of guidance on. So that's why it's structured as an interlocal between Warren and Portage, since Portage is the provider unit and then has the budgeting authority and the duty under the interlocal for budgeting. That's where I think that authority falls. So that's why it's structured that way.
Thank you.
Are they currently using that space for anything, or are they all cleared out? I haven't been over there.
No, they've been using it quite consistently. Yeah, especially, down the fire on Early Road the other day, they really used it heavily, but no, they're in there working on vehicles or doing something.
Oh, well.
So they
Not
need the
pushing
space.
agreement, all while not pushing for this agreement to happen.
That's correct. I've been here many times during the day and they've been in there working, doing whatever, you know. But, you know, and I've heard comments from citizens in regards to, you know, the new fire stations and whatever, but I'm not gonna get into that. But they have a need for it, and we're not trying to get rich. The lease agreement or the lease amount is not high at all.
Mhm.
You know, and then it includes, on top of that, utilities, which Mr. Tomzak back there has come up with a form to charge. They lease about 70% of this building. We have about 30%.
Correct.
And
Yeah.
then, and we would do the same thing in regards to the utility bills. About every quarter, I think it's set up every quarter. We would bill them whatever their 30% of the electric bill or the gas bill was for those 4 months.
Correct.
And then they would turn around. I think that's the way it's structured.
Correct. Yeah, there's basically there's a use fee that helps offset some maintenance obligations on a go forward basis, and then there's a pro rata share of utilities insurance, which is pretty typical under a use agreement of that type. So that's the way it's structured. We keep in mind that the building is still owned by the building corp, and you're still in this weird scenario where that station is occupied, but there's still some repairs going on to it. And this was here when the territory was formed. So it's this, and not to say that there's any malfeasance on behalf of the territory or Portage, but I think there's, as we move into this process and hopefully come to execute this interlocal, we just make it that much clearer who's responsible for what, who's incurring the costs, and how those costs are being allocated. And that's the important part. That's the benefit to the taxpayer is there.
So to answer your question, Eric, we've been after this for at least 3 months, I think. So it's to the point now that, you know, we're going to have to make a decision, or they're going to have to make a decision if they really want it or not.
Yeah, I mean, we're in the kind of situation we're before it, because if they're still not fully in that building because it's not complete and we're stuck, it's still being part of the deal. So,
Kind of.
so we can't really tell them to get out or start paying.
Yeah. There's kind of a that's a bit of it. Now that building it's functional, it's operational. I mean, they got trucks running from it right now.
Yeah.
So it's it's ready to go. It's in use for all intents and purposes. So I think this is an important step though, so that everybody knows, and the taxpayers know where their dollars are going and how they're being accounted for. And that's important.
All right. Any other questions about that for
No,
the trustee?
thank you, Alex. Thank you.
All right. Move on to new business. We need to start the public hearing first. You said you don't have to go there until 7, right?
Yeah, I think you're doing the bids right now.
Yeah, I just didn't know if we needed to move that so you could get out of here.
Thank you.
So yeah, we'll start with under new business, the opening of sealed bids for the sale of the Crumbstown Highway Fire Station.
I believe we only have one.
I can represent to you as the publisher of the notice and the designated recipient of the bids that we received at our office. One sealed bid from the Odells, and no others. It was received timely, and so I think it's appropriate for the board to open and review.
Don't cut yourself. The fire department just.
I'm gonna go put a medic on her hand.
Have Band-Aids out my car.
That's really helpful.
It is.
Maybe you want to take a look at that.
So do you want to
Yeah, if
My
you,
husband goes through a lot.
All the legal parts of it, that would probably.
yeah, I can, so I've got a completed bid packet here. I think if you want to, for the matter of the record, I'm gonna read in the proposed purchase price, and I can take a look at the rest of the packet here and see if there's anything else we need to discuss.
All right. Part two of the bid proposal that was turned in lists a purchase price of $201,000. Part that's in parentheses there, the purchase price can be less than $328,000.
How much was the bid?
201.
$201,000.
I can take So for the board's edification, the notice of bid that was published provided for three things. One, for bids to be submitted by, I believe, noon today. Two, it provided for bidders to propose exceptions to the purchase agreement, so certain conditions on which the bidder would be willing to entertain a purchase. The Odells have also submitted a couple of numbered exceptions here that we can review. And then three, the notice to bid provided that the minimum bid amount would be $328,000, which was the average of the two appraisals that the township acquired for the property, which is required by statute. Happy to have the board discuss, if you'd like, the terms of the purchase. If you'd like, I can also give you my thoughts from a legal perspective on where we sit procedurally and what the board, I think, is empowered to do. Maybe we should start with that if you'd like.
Yeah, that'd be helpful.
Okay. So as our interpretation of statute, the township is required to obtain two appraisals for property that it seeks to dispose of, and then that price, the purchase price, is set by the disposing agent, which is the trustee, and it is based upon the appraised value and the trustee's knowledge of the property. That's what the statutory language is. The statute here is kind of tricky, that it allows for the board, or allows for the disposing agent, to award a bid to the highest and best bidder, but it also doesn't seem to give flexibility to the disposing agent to award a bid that is less than that minimum amount. So that's I think suffice to say, as you sit here and look at the bid that's presented to you, it is not an inappropriate bid by any stretch, but from a legal standpoint, the bid is non-conforming to the extent that it doesn't meet the minimum bid requirement that's been set. So to that extent, I think the board has two options. You can take it under advisement and take the next 30 days until the next meeting to see if anybody else bids, or if the bid the Odells have submitted increases to that $328,000 amount. Alternatively, I think you're permitted to reject the bid as non-conforming. And my recommendation would then be, since you've got a bidder, they're sitting here at the table, you're empowered by statute to resubmit your notice to bidders, reset your minimum bid amount based upon the appraisals and your knowledge of the property. You now have a pretty decent sense of maybe not what the appraisers have to say about the property, but what the market and what purchasers think of the property. You can reset that bid amount and have this set for another bid opening on the 14th. And perhaps the Odells would be willing to submit perhaps an identical bid, perhaps a different bid to meet that revised minimum bid amount. I think those are your options. Suffice to say, I don't think, based on my reading of the statute, that you're empowered to accept the bid as it sits. I think those are your options.
The board could though.
I don't believe so.
No,
No, I think the workaround to that would be to issue a new notice to bidders with a downward revised amount. If it happens to coincide with what this bid is, I think that's completely within your discretion, and I think that's supported by statute. In any event, I think what we had contemplated from a timeline standpoint, we had contemplated the bids would be open today, taken under advisement, and then a bid would be awarded at the October 14th meeting.
I believe that was in the bid package.
Correct. That's what was anticipated as part of this process. Now, you could, if the bid had been conforming, you could have awarded at any time. But since this is the channel we're on, if you were to reissue the notice to bidders with a revised minimum bid, we would still be on track to award that bid at the October 14th meeting. Again, assuming a bid packet was submitted timely and in anticipation of that meeting.
Otherwise, Alex, we're at a standstill because we did not receive any other bids.
Correct.
So there's some action the board needs to take.
That's correct. And it's either take it under advisement and wait another 30 days to see if anything else happens between now and October 14th, or reject it as non-conforming, reissue the notice to bidders with a revised amount. Again, I think to coincide with the bid amount that's been submitted. Perhaps that encourages, again, the Odells to submit another bid. Perhaps it encourages additional competition in that space. But I think again, completely within your discretion as to how you want to move forward. You do have a bid. It's not for an insubstantial amount of money, but procedurally, I think these are your options.
But the Odells have, we have opened their bid, so, it's public record that what their bid was.
Correct.
So if the board decides to, reject that one and rebid at a different amount, they did everything legally that they were supposed to do.
That's correct. No, other than the minimum purchase price, the minimum bid amount, it would appear from my preliminary review that the bid packet is otherwise sufficient. I think.
What was the Odell's alternatives? Didn't they have some other options in there? Or was that for lesser money or more money? Or
are you talking about the exceptions to offer?
Exceptions.
The exceptions, and I can read them here for the record. There's a note that the bidders have fully examined the property and found some deficiencies, that there are garage doors that need to be repaired, that there's some roofing that needs to be repaired, some renovations in a living quarters, interior renovations, a diesel leak from a tank, and some asphalt repair. And then there's some notes here on the fire department well use as well, which, as the board will recall, we'd included in the bid packet that would be something for a successful bidder to negotiate with the fire territory, the use of that well that's on site, which the township could waive as a condition of closing if it were inclined. But the Odells, as part of their offer here, would be to install and pay for a light next to the fire well, for outside controls of the well, for the electricity for the well, and then the fire department would maintain it, upgrade it, and would provide some indemnification and insurance for the Odells to operate it. So some give and take there on the offer, but those would be the exceptions. So again, the township, as part of its notice to bidders, invited exceptions, perfectly reasonable and kind of expected with these types of transactions. But those would be the conditions that the Odells would consider according to their bid packet.
Now, if I could.
Sure.
The exceptions we said about the remodeling and everything, that's all on our dime.
Okay.
That has nothing to do with you. It's just telling you, we were explaining why the bid was at 201,000. That's not a knockoff of any price. Our price is 201,000, the way it is, plus what we're offering the fire department.
Thank you for that.
Keeping the well there and.
Thank you for that point of clarity. So, again, procedurally, I think that's where you're at. I think your prudent move, if you're content with the purchase price that's been offered, and again, with the representations that the Odells have made, would be to reject and reissue the bid. Or you can take it under advisement and see if anything changes in the next 30 days. I think those are your options.
If we were to reject and reopen it with the lower amount, say somebody else came in at 202,
Mhm.
It is our purview to decide whether or not we would go with the Odells or that higher bid.
That's correct.
So we wouldn't necessarily be eliminating, like if somebody did come in a little higher, knowing what they know now, to like scoot in and undercut them because they're obviously they did everything like they were supposed to do. It's just the law that bounds us with that
That's correct.
minimum bid.
That's correct.
But couldn't they resubmit a bid also though?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, and I think
Yeah.
that the township would encourage them
Yeah.
to do that. I mean,
Well, the bid that we've got, that's exactly what we would resubmit.
Yeah.
Which is
and it's
what we expect.
mostly, again, it's just this is the procedural aspect of it. I think the statute doesn't give you discretion to deviate from that minimum bid, which again is based upon the appraisal